1 2 1 2 1 2. So in here was able to make it in due time today. You know, taking it back to the root. You can see we got Professor Jiang. We got Professor Jiang queued up once again. You know, we're gonna get into that later. You know, right now we're gonna get into the topic. You know, keeping it simple today. Keeping it simple. You know, we've been off the deep end doing a lot. Let's get back to doing the knowledge. Let's get back to the old-fashioned way. You know, what's the deal with my alerts here today? You know, seeing the good old people. Truck or true. You know, especially for this topic right here, for Professor Jiang today. We need Don Bishop in here for this. The hardest working man in South Jamaica, Queens. L7 Law, wise understanding. All right. This wise understanding right here, right? You know, just, you know, my name is Darkim, right? You know, I'm from New York. So it says here, your name is wise understanding. Where are you from? All right, Coney Island. You're right, wise understanding. Because, you know, there's a perpetrator. let's let's say it like that, right? There's a perpetrator out there, right, who fancies himself as wise understanding that I don't want no dealings with. You know what I mean? So fortunately, we don't have to press the button. We don't have to press the button to get rid of nobody just yet. But yeah, we got this. This is another topic right here, right? This is something that uh, you know. I thought it was funny. I already saw this particular little film right here that we got. You know, but before we deal with that, we're gonna get into the topic we got here of what is the real power of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? And particularly uh, the knowledge of the 5%. You know, the last couple of live streams we've had, um, we've had a couple of new people. You know what I'm saying? And that was, a couple of the questions that came up is, you know, what is this knowledge good for? What is, what is one, what is the much that's going to be given? Why should, people just want to know, what is it that is going to make, these, it's not really a labor if you love it. Blair and G, you didn't miss anything so far today. We still in the introductory phases, waiting for some more people from the What Did I Miss crew to get in, so that, we could explore this topic right here, because I even seen some people, uh, in their perception, knowledge is not power. So, I just wanted to deal with that topic out front, first. But what's going on your end? What's your righteous name? Blayling G. You might have to get a nickname soon. Intellect Supreme. Nice name. And where you from? Birmingham, Alabama. Man, that's crazy. You know, it's look. If we was Christian, I would say right now, man, it's racists rolling in their grave. If we was Christian, listen, man, you know, if Dynamite Bob knew that there was people, the black man in Birmingham knew that he was God. I couldn't imagine being the messenger that had to bring him that news. You know, it's see my I'm old school, so some things I still I know things have changed. You know what I'm saying? But I can't get those images out of my mind. You know what I'm saying? That stuff was burned into me as a child. You know what I'm saying? Oh man. Napalm J. Quan, I'm not sure what happened to your comment. I can see it over there, but I don't see it here. It got erased somehow. You know what I'm saying? Glenn G. Intellect Supreme said they would die in their afterlife. Yeah, that's you just don't picture, after seeing those images, right, and knowing that history, you just don't picture the knowledge there. You know what I mean? It's just but look, that's how far that's how far we've come. Quashim said, for me, this nation inspired me to stay out of trouble, go back to school, and get a job. This nation did in one day what my father tried to do in 5 years. Now, see, this is, we're getting into where you know, I'm talking about in terms of knowledge being power. You know what I'm saying? See, it's various, uh, fuel that you need in order to you know make certain, whether it's natural mechanisms like the body, right, or whether it's some man-made mechanism like a car, right, or should I say a natural organism like a body and a mechanism like a car, right. you know, it's everything has a certain fuel that causes it to do what it does. You know what I'm saying? So, in the body, we need food, right? The carbohydrates and the fats and the proteins, the various nutrients, right? We need oxygen, right? All of these different things is fuel, right? But in order to activate the full potential, right, in anything, if you go to dig ditches, right, in order to become the best ditch digger there is, you got to have the knowledge. Now, you might, something like digging ditches, it's more likely that you're going to gain that knowledge from experience. You see what I mean? And that's what's going to give you the power to dig, 10 feet of ditch where another individual can only dig 3 feet of ditch. What you say here? Does anyone know if there's someone righteous in Alaska? Because I met a Puerto Rican born in Alaska. I mean, did you have to point out that he was Puerto Rican? I guess, but yeah, there's people in Alaska, believe it or not. I've met some people from Alaska. Mostly, you know, uh, military, but it does exist. He said, I've heard people say knowledge is potential power. Power is in knowledge that's applied. No. I mean, look, I've heard people say things similar to this, right? But this is exactly what I'm saying, right? It's that, uh, the power itself, you have to use the power. Meaning, there's electricity right there. You got to turn the power on. You see, first, you got to know where the switch is. You got to have the key to get in. See, like gas doesn't drive the car. Electricity doesn't turn on the light. See, you have to actually begin applying the knowledge, right? Just in using your wisdom to discern what's the useful information and what's the useless information. But what I'm saying is, right, look, at all the other things you can have, right? You can have the muscles to do it. You could have the cardiovascular endurance to do it. You could have the desire to do it, the burning desire. But without the knowledge, ain't nothing gonna move. See, all the rest of this stuff in 6, yeah, you could do it with all that other stuff. See, that's the realm of food and oxygen and gasoline and electricity, et cetera, et cetera. You see, everything what we saying, right? When we say that, look, in order to be this, right? In order to be God, you got to walk with God. You have to see the power in motion. You know what I'm saying? The power is not like, the higher power. Where the higher power is the animator. We're the animator. You know what I'm saying? The potential is in all those things, right? You have a black man, right, with the proper knowledge of himself, and then he puts that into activation to be the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, God of the universe. But that's the difference. Now look, when we say the knowledge, right? The knowledge of what? You understand what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of things that you know what I'm saying. There's a particular, that's how you know the knowledge is the power. Because knowledge of how to put a bicycle chain on, right, is not going to bring the black man to his fullest potential. That's something else. You said, wouldn't the power be in how you use the knowledge? That's your equality. See how you use the knowledge and the power, right? That's your equality. That's how you dealt with the world. You see what I'm saying? And so you either dealt with supreme equality with it, you know what I'm saying, or you dealt with limited six with it. See, it's just like, look, it'd probably be less people, right? But see, the same knowledge that I have, right, and the same ability that I have to communicate it, I could use it to find some followers. See, over here, I get rid of the followers. I don't like them. You see, but I could use the power, and then that's my equality. That's how I dealt with other people. And see, from there, look, that's how you would know if I was God or the devil. Because you would see whether I built or whether I destroyed, and what was made born from that. Did I complete ciphers, or was everything what was born from the way I dealt with equality, death, hell, and destruction? Is that a little bit clearer? See, I'm gonna start getting my Professor Jang on. I like this is one of my favorite people right here, right now. See, I like how he teach. So look, I never liked this phrase until I started hearing Professor Jang say it. But look, does that make sense? does, does that make sense? See, because I never liked that phrase in the past because in my mind I'm thinking, why would I say something unless it makes sense? Like I'm not in that happy. That's what I be wondering. Hey, yo, why somebody asking? Why are you asking me if what you said makes sense? Like, did you not think about that before you said it, or you was just winging it, and so now you trying to see? That was just what do you call that? Like speaking in tongues and all that. But see, even like this, like I said, look, this is another type of power right here, right? Because Professor Jang, he presents he presents knowledge, or this information that he's giving us. We still have to do our own research and due diligence just to say it's knowledge, right? But these things that he's presenting, see, this is fuel. Now you got something to think about. Divine God, what's the science? Intellect Supreme said that's my go-to line when talking to people because they say they understand, but they don't understand. Now, see, look, that was my go-to line. My go-to line was from Saheem. What part you don't understand? Like, Saheem, he drops science on you. Then he asks you, what part you don't understand? You know, that's the simplest, best question. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Don Bishop, just who we was looking for. So Don Bishop, I know you see, the little video we got queued up here from Professor Jiang, right? So I wanted you to be in here, right? Because we're gonna analyze it. Because one thing about Professor Jiang, right? He goes into the Bible. He goes into the history. That's the one thing about him is that he does. Uh, sometimes he's speaking as if all this religious stuff is factual, right? But I mean, he's backing it up. But like I said, you still got to do your due diligence. Whether he's entertaining or what he's saying is interesting. But you know, he presents some interesting perspectives. Like I said, I don't know who he is. I don't know what he's about. I don't know if he's for the CIA. I don't know if he's for the KGB. I don't know if he's for the CCP. You know, and I don't know if he's just a professor that uh, found another way of getting the knowledge out there. You know what I'm saying? He could just but either way or I don't know if y'all ever met. I never met him. See, sometimes, especially when we dealing with this internet, but you gotta realize we don't know these people, man. We don't know these people, and see, it's still, no matter. Not saying that everybody is bullshitting you, right? But saying that there is an entertainment element to this. You know what I'm saying? Like even if it's books, if you read a book, there's a certain if the book is there's books that's easy reads and there's books that's hard reads. You know what I'm saying? And so you had to be aware. You know what I'm saying? Especially on this here internet, right? Where money is involved, and you know, you've seen people come from the internet and then be on stage with the presidential candidates. You know what I'm saying? You've seen, uh, the I don't really want to get into all that, but the man, he got assassinated, or whatever happened to him over there on the college campus, you know, a little while ago. These people are internet personalities and rise to a level of, you know, affecting national politics. You know what I'm saying? So that gives you a whole other layer of people that can be behind anybody that you see speaking on the internet. You know what I'm saying? And whatever topic that they're using, right, could just be being used to draw you up. You know. So like I said, I like Professor J, right? But we weigh and judge things. And when we weigh and judge things, we know that it's two sides. You know what I'm saying? And look, that doesn't mean that the negative side outweighs the positive side. See, when we put this all on the scale, right, it might only be linked over there on the negative side. He might, the only bad thing, he might like too much sugar in his coffee or something. Pause. You know that you know what I'm saying. It don't is but we have to do the knowledge, and when you're doing the knowledge, you have to have an open mind. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, there's what they say: you jumping out the window, son. You jumping out the window, and your mind is not open. It's like you jumping out the window of the airplane, and your parachute don't open. So we weigh and judge things into one grain of sand because look, like the title says, we know that knowledge is power, and we've seen people plant seeds, right? Plant seeds in especially in the youth in our community, right? We've seen how the stuff that they observe, right? Knowledge is to look, listen, and observe. So we've seen how the stuff that they observe, right, cause them, to behave in ways that's detrimental to their own self, their own life, their own freedom, their own family, everything. So that's why you have to be aware when you weigh in and judging this stuff, right? Because how many times, you look back and you thought the wrong thing. And so you did the wrong thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, knowledge means to look. When you walk out into the street, right? Or maybe that's just me. Maybe it's just a force of habit, right? But look, even if I'm crossing a one-way street, I look both ways. It's just by force of habit, I look both ways. So depending upon where you live at, that really just because it's a one-way street, that don't necessarily mean all that much to those that drive on those streets. He said that's our brother Professor Jang. He 5%. Listen, he got a first coming student enrolled. I don't know if he's a student enrolled, but look, you never know. You never know. He's a bit long in the tooth. he's a he's a little bit long in the tooth, you know, but because it appears that he has some knowledge of civilization and righteousness, you know, uh, it could, it might work. You never know. But so we ready, Don Bishop? You wanna check this out because he flows through the conventional, because at the end of the day, especially with this history, and that's why this is interesting to me, is because with history, there's certain things that they know, right? Like you saw uh, a statue over here with this name on it. You know what I'm saying? And then you saw a statue over there with the same name on it. And so, with historians, a lot of times they got to connect dots like that. And they all don't connect those dots in the same way. Where you have, varying, uh, theories of migration and you know, who's the leadership of empires, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of times that's where, it comes to the point where, most of the scholars agree on this particular way that the dots have been connected. So he connects the dots in some interesting ways. John Bishop said Queens is known for having technical one-way streets, but are labeled two-way, so it's natural for me to look both ways. Yeah, I look both ways, even on crossing a one-way street. You know what I'm saying? Or look, you ever and I noticed this is like I think this is a man thing. I don't know. I don't really see women doing it, right? But you know how if you walk out of a door, right? Like if you walk in a door, it's different. Like you walk in the door and you kind of, your peripheral vision, you kind of just, uh, how would you say, uh, you can visualize everything real quick. Like it's, stuff over here, you might look, way over there. But when you walk out of a door, right? You ever notice how you look the other way from the way that you're going? Or is that is that just me? Is that just paranoia? But whatever it is, when I walk out of the door, I always look the other way, and then I go to the way I'm going. Find understanding, Felix Almanzar. You see, I got to weigh and judge all of it before I go. As I'm going out there. Now when I start pausing before I go out and I look like that, then that's when I'll be a little bit concerned that my paranoia might be getting the best of me. But for right now, I think I'm good. Let's see. Uh, intellect knows what I'm talking about. That's called checking your six. Oh, in the military, that's called checking your six. What is my? All right, yeah. 12 o'clock. What is this? This is 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Right. Hey, you know, when you growing up where we grow up, it's yeah, you pick up some military, at least some military like tactics. So I recall when I first visited New York and got lost in Chinatown. Strange moment. I kept trying to find my way back to mainland, but all the signs was in Chinese. That's actually, uh, I'm not angry with them, but that's something that I see as a sign, as like a sign of, you know how power is exercised. You know what I'm saying? That when you go in certain communities and they got the street signs written in the language of those people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, I guess at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, black people in America speak English. But it just goes to show you how much power other communities got. That's not the only place, and that's not the only community. That when you go around there, that's how much power they exercise in their community, at least on a political level. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things like, I don't know if y'all ever check, uh, is it Dr. Claude Anderson or is it Professor Claude Anderson? I think it's Dr. Claude Anderson. And he always speaks about how uh, there's no black town anywhere. You got Little Italy and Chinatown and, what I'm saying, various, uh, communities where, there's Koreatown. New York got everything. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things that he says about that is how, you know, black people will go to Little Italy to buy things that's over there. They'll go to Chinatown and buy things, right? We used to go down there, Canal Street. That was the shopping area. We used to go down there. We used to go to the Jews on Delancey Street. But he pointed out that, you ever, you never see the Jews come to the black neighborhood to buy, you know, soul food or whatever it might be. You see them at Sylvia's, but that's a show thing. So that was a little sidetrack, but uh, that's always something that's interesting to me. How that's happened, you know. So interestingly enough, when I walk my young queen to school, she stops before crossing and does the same thing. So I say another thing about me crossing the street, right? See, I learned how to cross the street like on the highway. Like when I learned how to cross the street, it was 6 lanes. It was 2 lanes. Like it's a street where uh like you cross over the first street right here, it's 1 lane, and you get to the median. Then from that median, it's 2 lanes going that way, 2 lanes going that way, and then you get to the next median, and then there's 1 lane going that way. And I was crossing that when I was like 5 or 6. So, you know, so pretty much I know how to cross the street. You know what I mean? And so, I had to be so careful, especially before they let me cross the street by myself. I had to demonstrate so much capacity to do it. That's another one of those things that's just burned into me. Leyland G said they still have knowledge of self in their community. So, which community is this that you're saying they still have knowledge of self? You check them out across the street looking one way. I see people. I see people crossing the street looking at their phone. They ain't looking. Not even. Not even. Yes, people have been programmed to think and believe that having exclusive black things is racist and wrong. The irony of that is how they taught us to think and believe here in the Bible, though. I mean, yeah, that is, you know, and I'm sure, being from that area, you probably know of a lot more examples. You know what I'm saying? But see if that started happening, right? Then you might get a situation like uh, what's that place where the Gap Band is from? Tulsa, Oklahoma, and all of that. You see what I'm saying? Is what could possibly be the outcome of that. You know what I'm saying? And yet we see other people, uh, actually get rewarded, because of their identity. Their identity is fully about solidarity. And a lot of times you will see that, especially for black men, we get called out all the time. Obama, I don't know what he was thinking, but we get called out all the time for not being in solidarity with people that don't like us. See, that's the thing. See, we gotta have solidarity with people that you know you go in their neighborhood and you watched. But you turn it. I guess that's it. That's another video. Gun Hill and White Plains. By the time I got over there, I knew how to cross the street. I was a veteran. I was a veteran by the time I got over there. But yeah, that is you gotta be careful navigating over there too. Did they used to call Harlem Little Africa? Um, nah, I don't. I don't ever recall that. Okay, so you say that the community with the signs in their language still have knowledge of self, right? So uh, break that down. What you mean by that? put their culture first. I know people born here, but they are taught their native tongue first and then English. Said, I recall going to a Chinese spot in either Weehawken or Newark, and everything was either Mandarin or Spanish. Uh, yeah, one of those areas over there is like the top, like it's more Cubans. It's like Cuba, then Florida, and then that town in terms of population of Cubans. But getting back to this right here, what you're saying about, all right, so that you're saying in terms of their cultural identity, they still have knowledge of self, in terms of their, uh, determined idea for coming here, they retain that knowledge, because I just wanted to be clear here that, uh, many of those people are still Christians and Muslims and, you know, whatever various religions, Hindus, et cetera. You know what I'm saying? They still believe in mystery gods. You know what I'm saying? But uh, they're they're look, they understand the first six elements. They know everything from who they are up to how to further their civilization. But they don't be knowing who God of the universe. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, with that is a level of knowing thyself. Back in the days, what was that thing they used to say? They used to rhyme. They used to say assimilation. And one thing they used to say is assimilation is death. But was it? I think association brings about assimilation. What was it? I know divine understanding. Divine understanding probably know what I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, to put it, in a more, I guess, where everybody can understand what we saying, because we speaking from a standpoint of we know what we know, right? But yeah, other communities don't assimilate in. They don't assimilate into the fabric of America to the degree that it destroys their, their knowledge of their legacy and heritage. You know what I'm saying? And the, and that's not a black thing. Like the things that you're saying in New York, that was happening in different neighborhoods. Like where, you had people in various neighborhoods, people that have been in America for decades. Like you had Italians that was in America for decades, did not speak a word of English. You had Irish people that if the mayor said this is how it is, and the priest at the parish said no, it's not, then they listen to the priest. You had Spanish people. Yeah, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans was in America for decades and ain't speak no English. So I'm saying that in New York, this system is particularly designed to break all of that down. You know what I'm saying? Like because look, in New York, if you notice, right, in New York, mostly all semblance of Southern accents, Italian accents, Asian accents. We speak with a New York accent here because this is an immigrant city. When they talk about all the immigration, they say something like over 80% of the whole population of America, somehow or another, they got an ancestor or something that came through Ellis Island. So that's one of the things they was doing in particular, right? Is they had to drag those immigrants to be assimilated. So now it's I think it's becoming harder and harder to resist that. You know what I'm saying? Because I can see even where, like, the legacy and the culture used to at least last a generation. Like if you had some people who they immigrated to New York, they children was still, raised in that culture. You know what I'm saying? But now, you got these phones. When people go to school, they ain't learning nothing. You don't even have no time when you occupy. Like at least back in the days, we had some work that keep you out of trouble, at least for a little bit. But now they ain't learning nothing over there. Go over there now, so 6, 7. Wise understanding said they weren't fed the wrong food to the degree that we were. That fear is planted in us day one. I wouldn't say they weren't fed the foods. It's I mean you can say that to a degree, but it's not really that. It's that they got a different plantation for them. Like what they supposed to be doing. So you got to remember, like for instance, here's something that they get to a higher degree than us. So you got to remember that a lot of those people, when they come here, they love it. I'm talking about the things they love. Some of the very things that's the problem. See, like, look, we was talking last couple of days. I had this conversation with a couple of people, right? Is that they say, look, we need to bring immigrants here, right, so that they can do jobs that black people don't want to do. So look, I have a different way of saying the same exact thing, right? But the way I'm gonna say it, you're gonna get a little bit different understanding, right? They bring immigrants here to do jobs, right? To work for money that black people know they can't survive in America for. See, that's the real nitty gritty. Because what I'm saying is this, right? If they told people, look, we paying 80,000, we paying 80,000 to pick strawberries right now. Do you think for 1 minute it wouldn't be a line of people with applications? Especially because look, you could do that with a you could do that with a record. That's not so. That's listen. Everybody on parole will be down there. And see, that is very see. Look, when they say it, see, sometimes you gotta listen to them, and you will recognize that they saying the same thing in different terms. See, another part of New York history, right, is you had a lot of rich people here, right? The Astors and the Vanderbilts and all these people, and they built all these mansions. You don't see the mansions now for the most part because they tore them down. But sometimes when you come to New York and you see a museum, that used to be somebody's house. It's people's mansions that's been turned into museums. People's mansions have been turned into resorts. You go there, stay in a hotel, do all types of stuff on their estate. But one of the things that happened to those mansions, right, is that uh, they ended up tearing a lot of the mansions down between the 1920s, like say 1930, up until like the 1970s. And the big reason for that, or one of the big reasons for that, was the labor that it takes to run a mansion. Some of them had to have staff 50 and 60 people, right? And one of the things that happened is, you know, especially once you get to the 30s and the 40s, that's after the union movements. The unions was very active in the 20s and the 30s. So now you got all these union factory jobs that's coming. See, when they was building those mansions in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, people still riding horses. It's still not electricity. At least not everybody don't have electricity. It's not telephones. You know what I'm saying? All of these industrial things come online between World War One and World War Two. So now there's all these factory jobs. And the factory jobs that they, like I said, it's all this union activity. So the factory jobs is paying too much money for people to work as maids and butlers and cooks, and you understand what I'm saying? So now if they gotta pay a comparable rate to what people is paying in the factory, and then mind you, if you work in the factory, right, at least you get to go home, even if it's overtime, right? At some point you go home. But if you a butler, right, and the lord of the house, needs something at 3, 4, 5, whatever in the morning, you gonna call. You see what I'm saying? So because they couldn't take advantage of the labor no more, right? They had to shut it down. See, I know. Look, it's sometimes, sometimes I have to show my age as I'm an old school militant. Grew up in the Black Panther era. You understand what I'm saying? I just look. We doing our thing. We don't need to talk about that. But at the end of the day, I know what all that stuff is about. See, you ever you ever heard of somebody named John Smith? John Smith. Uh, no, no, Adam Smith. Uh, I'm sure most people heard of Karl Marx, right? Karl Marx is he's he wrote the manual on communism and socialism, right? Adam Smith wrote the manual on capitalism. Right, L7, the economist Adam Smith. Right, he wrote the Bible of capitalism, like Marx wrote the Bible of socialism. Right, so he made all these observations. You know what I'm saying? Wrote down how everything was working and everything. You know, he made a few predictions. So what I'm saying, this is my big point of saying this, right? When he was doing his work was during the height of slavery. He was making all his observations during the height of slavery. So if the Bible, right, of capitalism is written with slavery as a part of the equations that they're using, free labor is a part of the foundation, right, of how this thing works. Now they know they can't continue with the conditions of the slavery because the conditions of the slavery is bringing about too many Nat Turners, too many Denmark Vesey's, too many Harriet Tubman, too many. This is becoming the problem. So we have to change the conditions of what we're doing, right? We can write this back up and say, okay, this is how much it's costing us to do it this way, right? Let's do it that way, right? And then this how much we can afford to give them and they stay over there. We have to find that amount. That is a calculated thing. What is the amount, right, that we got to give them so they don't want to fight, right? That's the floor. The ceiling is we need them to come back. We can't pay them so much, right, that they work for 2 months and then go back to Italy. It don't really got to do with how much they can afford to pay you. It got to do with that number right there. What's the minimum they can pay you, and you don't want to fight? Do you think I'm wrong or have a misunderstanding because I become slightly upset every time I see a black man working as a shoe shiner? It seems like a degrading line of work to me. I mean, uh, you know, we from a different time. You know what I'm saying? Because like say like right now, the last brother that I knew that was doing it, you know what I'm saying? He's got to be at least in his high 70s now, probably. You know what I'm saying? Uh, we from a different time where, you know, yeah, we didn't understand that. But see, I'm gonna tell you something. The brothers that was around back then, they had like a pride in it. Like it was that was a thing. Like, my pops used to tell me, when he was a kid in Harlem, how he used to shine shoes. You know what I'm saying? And how, he was getting all this money because he was one of the best shoe shiners in the whole Harlem. You know what I'm saying? Like that was something that uh, you know, badges of honor. Like, you know, they used to swim in the Hudson River, the East River. You know what I'm saying? Like things that, you know, we look at now like, whoa, whoa. You know, uh, that's the science of, that's another thing that's kind of related to what I'm talking about right now, right? And this is where a lot of people, right? The whole, you should be happy. You should be happy that your ancestors was enslaved because now, you get to live in America and have an iPhone and, you know, do YouTube videos instead of being back starving where you came from. Right? So, there's two things with that. First of all, maybe if you didn't come fucking with me and the people over there, it wouldn't be no starvation. How about that? That's first thing right there. We can stop right there. Right? But see, the standard of living, right, has risen generally. To where some people could get caught up in the illusion. See what I'm saying? Meaning this. Right now, we live better than a king in medieval times. Like, see, right now, it's shit that can happen, and you could go down to the bullshittest hospital, to the Martin Luther King, to the Lincoln Hospital. You could go down to the bullshittest hospital, and they'll take care of you. You be good. They give you some shit. You go home for a couple hours. Whereas back then, you could be the king with the finest doctors and die from a little cut on your hand because the standard of medicine wasn't at that level. And I'm saying that to say this, that see, you can't really, those they was in that time. They was in that time. You can't really, you know, they had the knowledge and wisdom, right? And the whole moral code and compass, you know what I'm saying, um that that they had and not the one that we had. You know what I'm saying? And look, I'm sure some of those brothers would look and say, look, if some of these little kids that's out here right now, if they went out and had that level of humility, right? Had that level of, look, I'm gonna get this money honestly. All of that was a part of that. You know what I'm saying? It was crime around then. You know what I'm saying? Where the little kids could have went, but they, my pops, he said his biggest business though that he had was he used to sell shopping bags. That at that time they didn't have uh, paper bags. You know what I'm saying? And just like when you go to the supermarket and you automatically get a bag, which that don't have in New York. They went back. They don't have bags, but now the supermarket just sells the bags. But my pop said he used to stand by the bus stop, right, wherever the place where the women used to get off the bus to go shopping, and he used to sell bags. he said he was caking. But he had the papers, the shoe shine, and the selling the bags. You know what I'm saying? So, look, I saw a video clip the other day, right? Where it was a dude, he was a rapper and he had a viral song. And so he was doing DoorDash, and some people who knew about the song or whatever, they come in. So you know how it is today. They start filming it, going live or whatever. So, when they talking to the dude, they like, come at him like he should be embarrassed or something, right? So then the dude was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm getting that money, man. You know what I mean? You need to get a job and get some money too. And the nigga said, I don't need no money. I don't need no job. I got that fire on me. Now look, I understand your point, but those kids, that kid, he needs to go shine some shoes. He needs to learn some humility. Look, go to Atlanta, shine some black man shoes if you got a problem with it. That's what I'm saying. But uh, for that time, it served its purpose. You know what I'm saying? People is got to be held responsible for what they know. You know what I'm saying? So it's like if you see somebody shining shoes, that's what I'm saying. Like, who you mad at? You're gonna get mad at him and curse him out. Like, why are you doing that? You're gonna get mad at the person whose shoes that he's shining. You know what I'm saying? You know, what I mean? A lot of things too. With that, you gotta know how to maneuver. Because I'm gonna tell you something. Uh, that's a story that I heard about the past too. Is that was one of the ways that I don't want to be using technology that gets me kicked off of here. How should I say the you know the Israelis the individuals who went on to become the Israelis, right? That was one of the things, one of the ways that when they came to America, they used to do a lot of jobs that black people was feeling like they was too good for. Like one of the things I heard is they used to sell ice. Like before it was refrigeration, people used to just buy blocks of ice and put it in whatever is the ice box, and that's how they used to keep stuff cold. And that's for whatever reason, black people thought they was above selling ice. Or maybe it was other black people. Maybe the other black people, maybe that's where it started, that the white man ice is colder. Who knows, right? But they was able to use that money, like I'm saying in New York, you know, uh, it never really had like no Jewish name, but the LES, right, that's known as a Jewish area. You know what I'm saying? Like say around 1900s, still to this day, right? But right there is Little Italy, Chinatown, and a lot of those jobs that they do when they over there in the LES, is that those are the jobs that you know where they living at is 40 of them living in the one apartment with sheets up and all of that. You know what I'm saying? They working in sweat factories and all of that. But here's the thing. Like for instance, you got Chinatown in the LES, right, where it's going down like that, but then you got Flushing, where the Asians that made it. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, you got Asian people, man. You got China. I'm not saying this to be funny. These is the intricacies of the topic that we're talking about. You got Chinese people that lived in America for decades collecting cans. had kids. The kids is grown, then went to college and everything, collecting cans. So uh, let's say somebody's shoe shining, right? They shining shoes. You know what I'm saying? Is it? Look, do can't they still use that story? That look, I got it out the mud, or do they have to start out with an 8 ball, and then when they get up to a key, they can say they can say they got it out the mud. Is that the only way to do it? Not I'm not saying that towards you. I'm just saying like that's the question. That's the question. You know what I'm saying? Are we looking at just how it looked? Because we black. Shit is like that. You could tell by just looking. You just look at Africa and see that black people, we care about how shit look. See, whether you like how it look or not, right? That's besides the point. But clearly, you know, Africans like how shit look. And shit gotta look right, man. Just the way how you ain't got the right jewelry on, you're not with us, man. So you don't see no black people without no jewelry. Whatever is the form that it's in, whatever is the material that it's made out of, right? You ain't see black people with jewelry. And look, that's been known to fuck us up. Caring too much about how shit look than what it is. You know what I'm saying? So, I would say this. You know, maybe you could channel some of that, right? By, and then sometimes look, you ever ask yourself this? That person that's shining shoes, do they own that shoe shine stand? At the end, because that's where I was getting ready to go with, right? Is that all right? You know, you know, because look, you got what you call it. We see they don't really have that no more because of fast fashion. But they used to have up into the '90s. They used to have these stores called cobbler shops where you could take your shoes there and they do they'll hook them back up, like rejuvenate your shoes, like they put a new heel on it, depending on what it was. But now when people wear the shoes a couple times and throw it out now, so that probably is not a lucrative business now. That's probably like making stage coaches, where it was lucrative in its time, but people ain't really riding horses now. You see what I'm saying? Uh, so uh, just saying, if anything, maybe you could open up a conversation with them, about ownership or something. You know what I mean? Or what's the various levels? What's the because you never know. I'm just saying that you know you know I don't really know if you should get angry. I mean, I definitely especially in the past, and especially if I saw them, the customer was white. Because see, like back in the days, there was certain big train stations. Like you might go to Grand Central, and see a shoe shine stand there. Certain streets just had a shoe shine stand where dudes would be there, they reading their paper, getting their shoe shine. So you know, it's a lot to consider. Oh man. Okay, yeah, let me catch back up here. Right, L7, yeah. The Wealth of Nations. That is that's the name of the book. That's the name of the book that Adam Smith wrote. That's the Bible of capitalism. He was there observing as mercantilism was shifting over into capitalism. But you know, when we get to the end, because we're going to get to Professor Jiang, we don't went in a whole other direction today, though. But yeah, I want to get into that, what you said right there, how you said capitalism destroyed the trucking sector. The original people saved the colored man. We invented washcloths. You know, that's ooh, look, that that's another way that today people live better than medieval kings and queens. You know, you don't drink you don't drink out of lead cups. you, you don't drink out of lead cups, so you don't get stupid ideas like uh, if you take a bath, you wash off your protection. you, you don't get those kind of stupid ideas when you don't drink out of lead cups. You said free market capitalism lets people make their own decisions and has given these conveniences. Um, I mean, I'm with you on things, in general. I just would challenge that it's ever been free market capitalism, at least in America. You see what I'm saying? Because everybody in the market wasn't free. It's not free market. The market is not free. The market is captured by the rich people. I can't recall the name of it. New York is an interesting place, right? But there's an agreement. I can't remember the name of it. In the beginning, there was only like 20 people on Wall Street. Like that was the deal. Whatever was the trading that they was doing, you had to go through one of those 20 people. So see, from the jump, that's telling you that that's something they doing for them. You know who get the big bank on Wall Street? The people that charge the fees, man. The people that the people that that do the trading, the people that run the hedge funds, the lawyers, the people that charge the fees, man. Hey, look, where's Shakanulu? Shakanulu here, look, Shakanulu, when you come in here, this one's for you. You know who else is charging the fees? The ladies of the evening. That's who's getting the money down there. So believe what you want. Wise understanding. So we on Wall Street at a trading post making 100,000, and they in a fruit stand making a mill. Hey, people are providing a service, even if it's shoe shining, being servers, butlers, nannies, and anything. making it by providing a service or convenience. Yeah, but it's just a matter. Like, look, it's it's Spanish ladies that's rich, that they got their own customers that they done found, right? And they got a cleaning business where they got people that's rich enough, various businesses, the bar, this lawyer's office or whatever, and they get money. I'm talking about it's ladies like that that's getting so much money, they got other women working for them. You know, anybody that had the experience, I mean, when you really, 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 son, selling drugs is some grimy shit, son. The people you got to deal with. Hey, bro, you have no idea where those people have kept that money. You have no idea where those people have been or where that money's been that they have. The places you gotta be, the other people you gotta be around and deal with. Like, yo, bro, that's it. When you sit back and really look at it, saying that's, and then depend on what you're doing. Like, see that diesel where people got blood dripping all over them, blood on their money, you know. Well, that stuff there, I don't know what that is they got out there on the West Coast that they eat through their skin or something. That's when you really weigh it and judge it. Oh, so you're right. In the airports, you're right. In the airports is another place. Guys saying I travel a lot. So yeah, I mean, uh, I mean, I think another perspective, right, is you know, you know, don't get caught up in that talented temp stuff. You know, I like WB Du Bois. He's one of my favorite people, right? But you know, there was the there was the his side of it, right? There was his side of it, W.E.B. Du Bois with the talented tenth, and then you had uh, the Booker T. Washington side. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, is you know what you should do? Have a talk with one of them. Because, like I said, you would never know. This dude, he might be saying, "Listen, man," you might be telling, be like, "Look, man, you know, I come down here, at 9 in the morning. You know what I'm saying? About 1 o'clock, I done got my bread. I'm out of here. Look, I ain't got to take no orders. If I'm sick, I ain't got to cut. You know what I'm saying? There could be other things, right? Other than how we think he looks doing that. To where, sometimes that person is getting over it. Like, look, one time I used to work in Rod Playland, amusement park, right? So we was at that time we were sweepers, right? So everybody had like a section of the park, right, where it's like a walkway right there. So you have to just keep that walkway clean. But it's this kid from around my way, right? And so, he's working there. I ain't like, we didn't know that we was gonna both end up working there, but I ended up seeing him there, right? So at the back of the amusement park, it was a lake. They had the speedboats and all out there, like there was rides out there too. So I go down there one day and I see the dude, right? And I'm like, yeah, so we talking for a minute. So then he's like, yo, let's go over here and do something, right? So I'm like, yo, man, now I got this right here, because I had my little broom in the dustpan, right? He's like, yeah, I got this right here. I'm like, I got this right here. So I can't roll, right? So he just takes it from me and throws it in the river. He just throws it in the river, right? So I'm like, yo, at the time, I'm like, yo, man, what you did? We gonna get in trouble. He's like, man, I do that every day. He's like, every day I come out, we leave the whistle night, I throw my jump off in there, I'll be out, right? So eventually, truth secret, that was your first. Wait, in Rod Playland or Sweeper? Because if it's in Rod Playland, look, I was in Foods. I was in Ogden Allied, and then I came to the the amusement side. But at any rate, eventually they because I started doing it every day. Like when you leave the little whistle name, you gotta have the broom and the dustpan. So I used to take mine down there and just throw it in, right? Oh, you used to. Oh, so yeah, you used to play land too. We used there. You was there when because look, I'm gonna tell you why sweeping was a dope job. See, look, starting with sweeping, right? A lot of people, you might think that sweeping was a bad job, but here was the thing: people used to lose all kinds of shit. People used to lose the tickets, and we used to sell them. People used to lose money, we used to pocket it. Electronics. You know what I'm saying? We used to be, you know what I'm saying? Look, I used to be standing in front of the ticket booth. With a handful of tickets. Just shoving it, So look, that's the first job I had. People might look at it a certain way, but I was coming off. Like whatever was my check that I was getting, I probably was making that every day, every other day. You know what I'm saying? Through the tickets that I was finding and all that. But then eventually the lady sees me without the broom, so she's like, yo, man, nah, where's your broom, all of this. So she decides that she's going to punish me, right? And so the punishment is that she takes me off for sweeping and she puts me to collect the garbage. To this day, that's the best job I ever had. Listen, I used to collect the garbage maybe once, twice, like in the like on just some days. On some days, like what I used to do when I used to come in, when I first start my shift, I take I change all the garbage cans, right? And then I put at least 2 bags in the what's name. So now the next time when I come through, all I gotta do is take the bags out and put them in the what's name. The other bags is there. But the thing is that I used to always be on the night shift. So once it gets to a certain time of night, the park is too crowded for you to come through with that whole wagon. So that's why, in general, I only had to do it one time a day. And then overnight, there was an overnight crew that used to clean through the whole park. So whenever the next shift started, nobody was there complaining that the garbage wasn't changed. And so during that time, I not only didn't have the cart, I used to not even wear my uniform. Like I put the shirt on while I'm changing the whistle names. But once everything is changed, I'm just walking around the park doing my thing. So say for that 8 hours, you know what I'm saying, that I was working, sometimes on the weekend, I ain't even change it. Because by the time I came in, the park was already too full. You know what I'm saying? So, and I had a couple of, in Rob Playland that was the story of me in Rob Playland. They kept punishing me, and every time they put me in the other job, it was even better. I was coming off even better. Like, look, who's that said they used to work there? You remember the cafeteria, Truth Seeker? Was you there when they used to give the vouchers? They used to give the vouchers for you to go to, I don't know if you worked in games or if you worked in the food, but in foods, they used to have these vouchers that they used to give people, and you could go to this cafeteria. It was like the company cafeteria, and whatever you marked off on a voucher at the time, I think they gave you like $2.25 or $3.25, right, that you could get, and that basically came out to a burger, fries, and a soda, right? But the way the system was, it was just these papers, right? It was papers with little boxes, right? Say it's like maybe 20 boxes per page, and in each box, it just got like 1 to like 70 or something, right? And what that was is that when the people came in with the vouchers, like you would have in each box, like this box is the burgers, this box is the fries, this box is the sodas, right? So if a person come in and they order 1 burger, 1 fries, 1 soda, then you circle the what's the names, right? You circle 1 circle in each box. But what it is that whoever's doing that circling, at the end, you throw the vouchers in the garbage. So it didn't take me long to figure out, right, that I could just circle all these boxes. Because here's the thing. In the cafeteria, like I said, if you work for food, you get the vouchers. But if you work for games, if you work for rides and games, you don't have a voucher. You got to pay money. So I used to just circle the vouchers and just take the money. Like it was days that we didn't even touch the register. Like we was giving people change straight out our pocket and everything. And through doing that, certain people that worked in rides, like for instance, the dudes that work on the bumper cars, right? They should be like, yo, son, look out for me, man. I'm on the bumper cars, man. I got you. So I used to ride the bumper cars, like when the ride used to be over, everybody else get off. I used to just be sitting there for rides and rides. So I knew pretty much everybody in the park because they tried to punish me because the cafeteria used to close at 10 o'clock, but the park used to close at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. So they figured they was punishing me by taking those other hours from me. But in fact, it was me and my man Bobby. You splitting like 300-400 a day. 14 years old, 15. I don't even think I had the knowledge. So, although I wouldn't advise everybody to look for a better situation the way that I did, I'm just saying that sometimes, uh, you know, you looking at things, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like one of the things like plumbers, man. You got people that, yeah, you work in the office and you wear a suit and everything, but you don't make the money that plumber makes. Robbie. They still got shoe shiners in Grand Central? I haven't been in Grand Central in years. You said relatively speaking, everybody is free to act, but not everyone is equally able to. Then everybody's not free. that's, that's that's the definition of not being free. You know, see, everybody's not free to partake at the same level. They can they can pick however they want to draw the line. You know what I'm saying? They can pick different language to communicate it. Like remember some years ago when Richard Sherman called him out, he was like, "Yo, y'all saying thug, but that's your new way of saying nigga. Like, yeah, you put a different name on it, but it's still a rose. So if you make the line economics, right? You make the line that look, you have to have a certain amount of money. You have to have a certain amount of money to you have to have a certain amount of money to to partake in whatever it is, right? Like for instance, in New York, right? You got to have a certain amount of money to live in certain neighborhoods, right? And then depending upon that neighborhood, in New York, we got zone schools. Like this charter schools, you do have people that travel a little bit, but for the most part, you go to school in your neighborhood, at least in elementary and junior high school. But if by the time you get out of the eighth grade, you've been miseducated, what difference do it make if you go to a good school in another neighborhood when you get to the ninth grade? You see what I'm saying? So yeah, you didn't do it by just saying that's the nigga area. You didn't do it with what they call them, real estate covenants. You know what I'm saying? Where this neighborhood, everybody that buy a house got in a contract that they can't sell to a black person. You didn't use that, right? You know, but that's something, you know, uh, you will hear them say. They won't say the black people. They'll say the people from the disadvantaged communities. You know, it's about poverty. Because you gotta remember, they don't care if a few white people get caught in the. You know what I'm saying? Like if we draw the line and we say, look, everybody that can partake in this gotta have this amount of money. Yeah, if some poor white people get caught, they don't care. Especially because these poor white people gonna have been taught to hate those black people that they in the same boat with anyway. So we ain't gotta worry about them getting together and doing that. They're gonna be so busy arguing with each other. that we're gonna be able to 10% till the day's gone. So, Truth Seeker, you said you got there in '89. Yeah, by '89, I was all the way outside. Those was the last, you know. I was there 85, 86, 85, 86, and 87. Because when I first got there, I remember being too young to get my working papers. And I just kept lying to the man. They just kept saying, like, yo, you don't got your working papers. I said, yeah, no doubt, bring it. But shit, so you was there in '85, and your honorable name is Bobby? Man, you can't be my Bobby, because the Bobby that I used to be with was he's from Co-op City. They from Co-op of the Valley. I think Co-op. Yeah, they was from Co-op City. So you remember the so you said you was a sweeper, so you remember the big white lady? I can't remember too much people's names. But that was who saw me without the without the broom and switched my western name. But that's wild. I had to know you, because I was pretty much right. It was a whole bunch of girls from Co-op City. Right. Look, I used to catch the bus with them. Right over the bridge, right there, right before you get to New Rochelle. Yeah, those was my people. Man, that's crazy. Man, I gotta know this, brother. So you did? Was you ever on the like at nighttime when we used to have to walk to the when we used to have to walk to the Metro North? Eden Wall? Yeah, you had Justice was up there, uh K Born. Man, yeah, if you was walking to the what's your name? If you was walking to the what's your name, you I had to know you, man. Was you there that night? Was you there that night when the dude sicked the dog on us? When we was walking and the dude said, "Yo, P, P," and the dog came out like a big ass Saint Bernard and shit. was was you there that night? Yeah, white dude. Yo, say, I had to know you, man. That is crazy. Small world. So when you put the shoe shine, man, in that perspective, it makes me think of that song by Ice Cube, "Who's the Mac?" You might think he's a bum, however, he possibly could be hopping in the Rolls Royce. Right, that's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? And you know, we seeing, especially right now, how a lot of the people that we see out there with all the shiny shit, they fucked up. They worse off than us. Oh, you saw people throwing brooms in the lake? I tell you, man, it probably was us, man. You know, that's really pretty much like that was it. That was the last of my attempts. That, you know, Rob Playland was the last of my attempts to conform to the society. Well, I used to live in the game room, son. Mike Tyson punch out in the cruising. Look, that money that I told you me and Bobby used to steal every day, we used to spend it in the arcade every night. That's what used to fuck it up. Cause see, like I said, they put us in the cafeteria so they could take those hours from us. But we used to get out at 10 o'clock and have all this money. So we used to go to the arcade. You know what I'm saying? We used to spend that shit every night, son. If you see somebody, two kids playing cruising for mad hours, that was me and Bobby, yo. But that's we've been down memory lane now. Let's see what's up. Don Bishop, you still out there? Let's get into this here. See, that's the good thing about being righteous. That's what I'm saying. See, what if I did some fucked up shit? See, then he definitely remembered me, right? Yo, son, I'm gonna tell you, man, it's a good thing to have been righteous. You know what I'm saying? But let's see what Professor Jiang got to kick it with us about here today. This here topic. Let's bring him up on the big screen there. All right, y'all ready? Don Bishop, you in the building? Because this is very interesting right here. Look, it's going is I'm not, like I said, I already saw this one. Right? So being that I already saw this one, I'm gonna try to get through this without interrupting y'all experience too much. You know, but you know, Professor Jiang is quite humorous. So we're probably gonna have let's stop. We're gonna have to make the check this out again. This is Professor Jiang from Predictive History. You know what I'm saying? You know, I definitely enjoy his page. You know, go over there and check him out. He's got multiple series. You know what I'm saying? This right here is an excerpt from a video that he did. You know, this is The Jewish Dawn. That's the title of his entire video, right? But this right here is a particular clip where he's speaking about the Persians and their relationship to the origin of the Jewish nation, right? So without further ado, let's let Professor Jiang do what he does.
So we will look at the beginning of the Jewish people. And I'm going to make the argument to you that Israel and the Jewish identity are constructs of the imperial imagination. Okay, and this is hard to understand, so I'm going to explain it to you slowly. The idea is that because of its geographic location, Israel has always been historically important. And as a result, different empires have tried to manipulate the identity of Israel to best promote their own agenda or policies. Okay, so I know this is a hard concept to understand, but we'll go for it slowly. And again, we're spending like the rest of the semester on this major thesis of ours. Okay, so now let's move on to Israel. Okay, we now know about the Persian.
You see what I'm saying? Look, Professor James said, he said about himself the same thing that I said about him. Gotta do your due diligence. See, when he said he's presenting a thesis, right? That's his idea of what happened and the evidence that he's gathered to support that.
Empire, how they manage their system and why they are so effective. Okay, now let's talk about Israel. So remember that we read the Bible, and the Bible came about because David needed to legitimize his rule. And after the Bronze Age collapsed, David created a Davidic kingdom in the Levant because Egypt, Anatolia, Mesopotamia were preoccupied, right? But because the Levant is so important, this Davidic kingdom doesn't really last that long. It lasts like 80 to 100 years, okay? After Solomon, David's son, dies, Israel is divided into two parts. The northern kingdom, which gets conquered by Assyria, as well as Judah, okay, Jerusalem, which tries to maintain.
See, this is what I'll be saying about Professor GA, right? Is that when he gets into the biblical stuff, right? He talking about this stuff like it's real. That's one of the things that throw me off. But let's let him finish.
Maintain the Davidic kingdom, but it doesn't last very long. At this time in history, the Israelites are being pulled in different directions, okay? The Anatolians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, because they're strategically very important. And so what's really hard for these empires is how do we maintain control over Jerusalem, okay? And they try different techniques. They try burning down their city centers, okay? So the Northern Kingdom was destroyed. You might have heard of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. They tried taking hostages, okay? But because this region is so volatile, nothing really works. And so the Jerusalem, the Israelites keep on rebelling. So this is the kingdom of Judah. And what happens is, for the longest time, the Babylonians are trying to deal with the Israelites. Okay, so they take hostages. Okay, they take hostages, like thousands of them, and move them to Babylon, where they become scribes, where they become farmers, where they become merchants. Okay, but again, the region is so strategically important that Jerusalem, the Israelites, they switch loyalties all the time. Eventually, the Babylonians are so pissed off that they decide to burn down their temple. Okay. And so at this point in history, the Israelites are now gone. Okay, does that make sense? The Israelites are gone now. 587 to 6, we don't know when, but Babylonians destroy Jerusalem because they cannot, they tried many techniques to try to control Jerusalem. They can't do it. The Israelites are too rebellious. But it's too strategically important, so they destroy. So they decide, you know what, screw this. We'll just destroy the city. Okay. So when this happens, okay, this is really important to understand. The Israelites are gone. Okay. The people are still around, but the identity of the Israelites are now gone. 539, Cyrus the Great conquers Babylon. Okay, and he says, "I want the Israelites to return to Jerusalem." It's called the Edict of Cyrus, all right? And this is celebrated in the Bible. What is controversial is, why would he do such a thing, okay? Because again, the Israelites are now gone. The Israelites who went to Babylonia, they may still keep their religion a bit, but they no longer have their land. They no longer, they have changed as a people, okay? So as an Israelite, you pray in the temple. But the temple is now destroyed, so now you pray in the synagogue, okay? So the people have changed a great deal. So the question now is, why would Cyrus the Great go to Babylon and say, you know what, I want you Israelites to return to Jerusalem. I want you to reconstitute the nation of Israel. Why would he do that? Okay, so this is going to be a debate that will never ever end, okay? So the Bible tells us that Cyrus the Great did this because God told him to do that. Very really simple. God says, I love my people, the Israelites, send them home. Okay, and Cyrus the Great says, yes, of course, you're the great God. I'll do so, okay? Guys, that's how it happened, okay? All right, so
Yo, see, this is what I'm saying, son. This is what I'm saying. This is bugged out about him, right? Is that on the one hand, he's talking about all this stuff like it's real, but then he starts showing, he's like, yo, guys, that's not what happened. That he clearly doesn't believe in a mystery God, at least not this, Jehovah, or he doesn't believe in this guy right here. But he still be talking about this stuff and these people like it's real. See, I think the Christians can learn from him though. If they told the story more like he told it, people might actually have an easier time falling for it.
Really simple. God says, I love my people, the Israelites, send them home. Okay, and Cyrus the Great says, yes, of course, you're the great God. I'll do so, okay? Guys, that's how it happened, okay? All right, so there are different explanations. Maybe the idea is that Cyrus wants to show all the Persian Empire, I'm religiously tolerant. You can practice your religion, you can celebrate your religion. That's what the Persian Empire is, an open, tolerant, generous empire, okay? That's true. What's also true is that Cyrus found himself as a righteous and merciful king who wanted to be generous to everyone, okay? So he saw the Israelites want to home, he says, well, then go home, okay? It's also possible that there's a faction within the Israelites who supported his Babylon takeover, okay? I don't know if this is true, it's probably not true, but we consider that as a possibility, that the Israelites in Babylon supported his takeover, and so to thank them, Cyrus said, fine, I'll give you back Jerusalem. Another possibility is that when Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, he discovered that, you know what, these Israelites are really good administrators. And this is true throughout history because remember, the Israelites had their Bible, and their religion requires them to study the Bible. And as we discussed, the Bible is one of debate, openness, asking questions. And so these are very literate intellectuals, and they rise up very high in the Babylon administration. But this is true throughout history, where Jewish people will rise very high in all empires, including the Islamic Empire, including the American Empire, okay? I think the best reason for it happening is divide and rule, okay? So the idea is that you need to control the Levant, because the Levant gives you access to Egypt, which is historically the wealthiest part of the world, okay? Whoever controls Egypt controls the world. So what you do is you set up a group of people in the Levant that are only loyal to you. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, you set up people in the Levant that only exist because you, the empire, allowed them to exist. If you, the empire, did not support them, then the locals, everyone in that region would get rid of them right away. Okay, and that's why we have the Jews. So the Jews were invented by the Persians to control the Levant. The Jews is actually a Persian term, okay? So before the Jews were, of course, the Israelites. Now we have the Jews. All right, so this is...
Did everybody catch that? Look, there was one that I let go past, right? But see, this is what I'm saying. where it's like, he said that he switched, he went past it real quick, right? And he said the American Empire. Then just now, he said that Jews is a Persian term. That's the first of me hearing that. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, Professor Jiang, he always has some interesting insights.
This is Jerusalem. And as you can see, what's really important to understand is that this is actually only a really small part of the Levant. But this part is specifically for the Jews. And it's part of this Persian province called Beyond the River. Okay? And they call it the province of Yahu. That's why we have the term Jews, okay? Because they are part of the province of Yahu. And what's really important to understand is they're surrounded by enemies. The Sumerians are Israelites who have stayed in the Levant. Okay, do you understand? So most people around them are in fact Israelites who.
Now you see, he just contradicted himself a little bit, because earlier he said the Israelites is gone, and then now he's back telling us that these is Israelites that never left.
In the Levant, do you understand? So most people around them are in fact Israelites who adapted to local circumstances. And that means that they practice different religions. That also means that they married foreign women as well. But they still consider themselves as Israelites, okay? Right? Does that make sense, guys? So what happens is that these exiles from Babylon, they come back and they say, no, we're the true Israelites. You guys are the false Israelites. The reason why we're true is we have stayed loyal to our.
All right, stop right there. Somebody call up Captain Tazuriak. Like, that is proof right there. Said that's some Hebrew Israelite. Are you saying? Are you going to tell me that don't sound like the Hebrew Israelites? We're the true Israelites. You guys are the false Israelites. See, that's rock solid evidence. See, that only the Hebrew Israelites. Forget all the scriptures saying. If it really happened like this, I'm telling you, it had to be them. You gotta bring that back. I gotta use that. You're the true 5%. You guys are the false 5%.
Hey, does that make sense, guys? So what happens is that these exiles from Babylon, they come back and they say, no, we're the true Israelites. You guys are the false Israelites. The reason why we're true is we have stayed loyal to our religion. Okay? So what's going to happen over the next few decades is almost a civil war between Israelites who've stayed and Israelites who left but come back. All right? And this is what the Persian Empire wants in order to maintain stability in the Levant, right? Because you have this small minority of exiles from Babylon who've come back and they're in conflict with everyone else. All right? This is divide and rule. So these are my 3 predictions. First of all, they're going to rebuild the Temple of Solomon. Okay, they're going to build the third temple by destroying the Isaac mosque. They're going to do that sooner or later. Okay, that's the first thing they're going to do. And you know why? Because when we read the Bible, you can see how happy they were. Okay, because they felt completed.
See this part right here. Y'all can check the rest of that out later in terms of all his predictions and etc. etc. Y'all can check out his predictions later. See, like I said, at some points he starts talking like he really expects me to believe this stuff. But let me get back in here. I seen Don Bishop commenting. He said that part was right. The term Jews is a relatively new term, possibly Persian. They call themselves Judites, Israelites with a whole meaning, all 12 tribes. I think he's speaking of the diaspora. Yeah, that's what he's speaking of. But he's describing it in, uh, a much different way. Like in terms of, first of all, uh, the various causes for why all that happened. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that, uh, the conventional history that I've heard is that, at least from, religious people, is that they was disobedient. They was disobedient to God. So that happened. So my understanding of what he said was the Israelites existed before the Jews. Well, like I said, Don Bishop is our resident expert, but from the way I understand it, right, uh, uh, Hebrews is, uh, that means that you are descendant of Abraham. Like it's like a tree that becomes uh, actually smaller as time goes on. Everybody that's descended from Abraham is a Hebrew, right? Everybody that's descended from Jacob is an Israelite. And everybody that's descended from Judah, Benjamin, and some of Levi's is a Jew, or as Don Bishop said right there, Judites. So everybody, uh, you get Israelites. Those is just the descendants of Jacob, like the patriarch phase with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those is the Hebrews. Right. So Don Bishop, this is what I'm saying though. But what about the the various the various reasons that he was given? Right. Like when he said that Cyrus set the whole thing up for political reasons, right? Um, how likely are you to encounter some information like that if you were studying from a Jewish perspective? Like, is that what the conventional knowledge would be? Yes, the bishop is on the move. Said he has definitely done some studying that most theologians would stay away from. Well, Jewish theologians, I'm sure, uh, some Christians or uh, maybe even Muslims, which I don't know about Muslims. Yeah, actually, I don't know about the Christians who really. I think I've been watching a little too much Sinaitic, where everybody on there is. Yeah, but another interesting episode from Professor GA. But other than that, you got any questions? Any questions out there? You know, I'm gonna check up tomorrow. I'm gonna make sure to check and see if we've had any progress with 3i. The mothership there. But, the way I gotta check that, they not exactly going through air traffic control. So I gotta check on the network. You said those are now popular ideas amongst the Jewish or Christian scholarship. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like you talking about real scholarship, whereas I'm thinking about uh, Sinaitic, where uh, something like that, right, uh, would be useful in one of those debates. You know what I mean? Especially if you had the type of debate where, a lot of times things start going left and everything. That uh, that might be useful in that forum. But like you saying, you just talking about people that's just they got a certain amount of you know evidence or whatever that they got, and they just weighing it and judging it to come up with a theory. Then yes. But like I said, that's the thing. You know, I guess from the history standpoint, it's the same way. You know what I'm saying? Meaning like from a historical standpoint, right? Just a historian's perspective. He didn't provide any evidence that David or Solomon existed. That's probably why it wouldn't be that popular in uh, that world either, because of that kind of the fact that people uh, pretty much stopped trying to prove the Bible was right in the early 1900s. Like I don't know if they meant it literally or if that was like just a joke, but they had that. They said that at one time, archaeologists, they used to go when they used to go searching for stuff, they would have the Bible with them. So that's another factor. Yeah, I don't know, I think this live, I think I'm gonna split this one up. We had this was like three different lives today. But we had the first live, right, was about the title. And then, we went through a little social and economic history, right, for the second live. And then now we had the Professor Jang live. Might have to split this one up so that it makes more sense to people that wasn't there live. They might think we a little bit all over the place. Said I did the knowledge to this book called "The Book Your Church Doesn't Want You to Read" by Tim C. Leadham. It literally goes in depth to the cloud of deception caused by religious folklore. I mean, I heard of the book before, I never read it, because by the time I heard about it, I already was out of the church, so I wasn't really, because I heard it was, it had some stuff in there and everything, but, uh, for me, it was like one of the things where it's really, what's the point of looking back? But at any rate, we got any last questions before we get out of here? I gotta go get something to eat. I'm not gonna get fancy today. I guess I really never get fancy, but especially today. He said the point of looking back is the same reason you look the opposite direction when you exit the building. Yeah, I guess so. You know, but you know, uh, I do have to say, like, you know, the whole time since I left out the church, right? The whole time I always felt like I gave it an honest shot. Like at first I was thinking like, man, I was wondering if something was wrong with me. Like, how is it that everybody else believe in God, but I don't believe in it? I couldn't figure that out. Like I understood, like I didn't understand genetics and all of that at that time, right? Uh, but I realized that things are hereditary. I know that certain things you getting this from your ancestors, right? Your parents, grandparents, whatever. And so I'm wondering, how is it that everybody in my family believes in God, and I can't figure out, and it's like other people seem so sure, and it's all across the board. It's like all of y'all. So yeah, I couldn't. But so by the time I was 10 or 11, I figured out that nah, it's not me. I'm not. I'm not the. I'm not the one that got a problem. For some reason, I had an insatiable zeal to know the truth behind the story. Most live their life. Most live their life by the wrong foods. I mean, uh, so much of religion is kind of like just keep yourself busy. You know what I'm saying? Like with the hard work, you need to be out there working hard. You know what I'm saying? And suffering and everything and doing hard work so you can make it to heaven. You know what I'm saying? Just all the different things that is kind of given to you, so that you look the other way. You're not paying attention, and you're not supposed to be paying attention according to them because God got it. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't worry about things. Let Allah worry about it. So it's just one of the things where yeah, you got have people that's perfectly rational in all other facets of life. You know what I'm saying? But if you were to ask them to, uh, apply any type of mathematical reason, to kind of the religious stuff that they believe, it's impossible. But yeah, y'all, uh, I got some stuff I got to work on because somebody told me, I don't know if other people went there too, but they went to the school community. They said they had some problem. They had some problems signing up. So I'm gonna work on that. I'm gonna work on that, and we're gonna be on, even if briefly tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Of course, Thursday is soon at 7, but cross the line. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know if uh, he really, because see, here's the thing with Tazariak. I watch him when he's debating other people that uh, believe in the Bible. You know what I mean? Because that's always interesting to me. Because see, you know, not just the Bible, but all of these religious books, right, have a great many contradictions, and so it's interesting, when they're kind of going back and forth because this person will have a scripture that say what they mean, and this person will have a scripture that say what they mean, but then then they drawing them up. You interpreting his scripture, he's interpreting your scripture. To see which one. So it's interesting on that level, but it's like you know I might as well be talking to uh, you know I might as well be talking to a basketball player about politics. like not saying they don't know nothing about politics, but it's like, it's these are two different things. Like, because I don't see the Bible, right, as a book that covers, as a book that has expertise in as many topics as he does. Like for Israelite, what I'm saying? The Bible is a science book, a history book, a math book. You understand what I'm saying? A moral book, a law book. But he's been doing his thing. I saw him. There's uh, I don't know what it is. I think this guy, he might be from Israel. Or he's from somewhere over there, uh, in that realm, in that area over there. Uh, and he got a podcast that he started off. Who was he on? Joe Rogan? No, that wasn't Joe Rogan. That was one of these other famous podcasts. He was on there, and he was a kid at the time, but he did his thing on there. From there, he ended up getting his own show. So he had Captain Tazuriak on there with like some rabbis and stuff like that. And then there's a black dude that he interviewed Tazuriak, and they took him over to the ISUPK and everything. But he's doing a series of videos on cults. So I actually saw today where he had a video where he had two people that used to be Hebrew Israelites. Uh, One brother, uh, he was with the IUIC, I think. He was from Medina, and they had a woman on there that she was from Philly. So she said she was a Hebrew Israelite out there, where they're a little bit less organized according to those groups like that. They just kind of, they got their congregations, but they're not broken up into those kind of groups. And they was discussing, some of the things that drew them to it, some of the things that they didn't like that caused them to fall out of it in their experiences. This is the guy that I said, he got a pretty popular channel. He don't just cover cults, he covers like, corporate greed and corruption and stuff like that. But this particular part right now, he spent like the whole day with Captain Tazaria. The reason why I suggested it is because some said 5% called his show and tried to explain the Yakub story and did a poor job. Tazariak demolished him. He goes live once he went. I mean, yeah. Look, and this is something that came up, when he was talking about the power. You know, the power don't just activate itself. So you have to actually know how to direct the power. See, like you, John Bishop, you boxer. See, you can have somebody that's mad big, right? He got a lot of power, but he don't know how to direct it. So see, people think that you got this knowledge and you got this, supreme mathematics and all that. So you're gonna just go up there and tell them that it's mathematics, and then that's gonna be how it is. You know, you gotta know what you're talking about. Now it's born. Plus it's like, uh, you know, Tazuriak at this point, right, is a veteran of this going back and forth and debating shit. And see, even that's the thing. See, you sometimes you gotta just respect that. You know what I'm saying? That going, into a debate, you know what I'm saying? That's different than building. You know what I'm saying? Like you just conversationally building with somebody. You know what I'm saying? It's uh like uh battle rap. Like to my knowledge, nobody from battle rap, made like a record that was popular. You know what I'm saying? Whether it sold a lot of, copies or whether, just it was, the hood critically acclaimed it. You know what I'm saying? And nobody, you know, that made hit records is big in battle rap. You know what I'm saying? Like that debating on that level that they do, that's a different beast. See, when you've been debating that long, right? He already know what people is going to try to attack him. He's sustained enough attacks from enough different directions that he already know where people is coming from. Right? He's been in the forum and seen enough other people doing so he knows where everybody's weaknesses is and he knows where his weaknesses is. So, somebody that went on there and did that, they didn't exercise good judgment. Because first of all, who you going with? What's that? What was that going to do? Like you was going to go on there and teach Tazariak about Yakub, and I mean, let's say if you were successful, and what was your expectation of the outcome? So I see how some Hebrews use the sleight of hand when they debate using scripture that they know their opponents can't counter because they don't know it. That's why I say yelling at the screen. That's why I stay yelling at the screen when I watch those debates. Right. Now look, I've seen them, right? I don't know if you're familiar with a dude Vocab Malone. He's made, a couple of videos. This was way back though when he first started, but he's a Christian apologist. You know what I'm saying? And so, he's in the same boat. You know what I mean? Regardless, if you believe in all of that stuff, you're gonna be, in the boat where you're dealing with fairy tales, but you using the scripture, right? So, uh, He goes at it with them. It's I had to say he be getting at them. You know, because he knows the scripture. So it's like he can go back and forth with them. Like they go back and forth with the scripture where they'll come with, yo, it says right here that salvation is only for the Israelites. And then he'll come with over here, now it says right here that, salvation is for the world. The message was just given to us through the Israelites. You know what I'm saying? And he have his scripture for everyone that they got. You know what I'm saying? But the difference is he does have a, I would say, a clear advantage when it comes to things that he's researched, outside of the Bible. You know what I'm saying? The things that he's researched, or at least the way he communicates them, is still, uh, he's not going to come with things that any history that doesn't corroborate the Bible. You know what I'm saying? Uh, you're not going to hear him talk about that. You know what I'm saying? But in terms of uh, the research of the different uh, versions of the Bible, the different people that uh, you know wrote the Bible or added on to the Christian thought, and the other studies, the environment that the Bible was written in and all of that. I think he got an advantage, but it's definitely, you know, it has to be individuals on that level. You know what I'm saying? Up to Zuri, I've seen him. I've seen him eat up, a lot of lesser dudes. Yeah, you know something? I just saw that episode today, right here, where you said to Zuri, I made him apologize. Yeah, I can't. I don't even. I didn't really even understand what he said that Johanna did, but yeah, he apologized for saying Johanna did something and it was somebody else. But yeah, at any rate, uh, I think he, he outmatches them for the most part. I thought Jabari ate them up though. Him and he had a vocab alone had another dude with him. But yeah, nah, we it ain't we not gonna we not gonna prove nothing to him. We're not gonna prove nothing to him by explaining the story of Yakub. You had any idea who that was that called? This man, look, I saw that happened on Clubhouse too though. Yeah, you go into those forums with them, you know, Who be with Whacker Honey? I seen a dude, Gorilla Hebrew, out there. I don't know, but I seen him. It looks like he's back doing his Israelite videos. Cause for a minute, he was doing, he was like on No Jumper, talking about talking about the Hoovers. I don't know if he was saying he was Hoover or he's from the Hoover neighborhood, but it just, was kind of shocking. Oh, so that's probably he be around Whack. That's probably why he probably started getting all these these new videos. Like I was saying, he was blowing up. I was saying he was blowing up. Um, maybe that's what it is. Salah, what's the science? You said Gorilla Hebrew got exiled. You see all that debating, man. But see, like I said, that's you know, see to us, man, the devil is just who's trying to stop you. See all these demons and all this stuff out here, and you think you gotta be vanquishing, other people, so you gotta debate. See, to bring it back full circle, that was another thing I was saying in terms of, uh, you know, what's the real power of the knowledge? You know what I'm saying? When you're young, you be thinking like that. You know what I'm saying? And go over here and bomb these people. Somebody say something wrong. Yeah, God, peace, y'all the signs, man. You guys came from over here, man, to bomb these people. But when you just got everything, like my grandmother, you could bring some cards in the house, right? And you play the cards, and while you doing, she don't say nothing. But as soon as you finish those cards, you put them back in the box, and you ain't looking, she throwing them in the garbage. Cards is the devil. Whatever, I can't recall exactly how she used to say it, but cards was the devil. Oh, you know something? I know what you're talking about because I heard him. He was explaining it. He was explaining it. Uh, I didn't know. It was one of the things where I just. It was one of the things where I just kind of observed it. Like I don't know if this is true or not. You know what I'm saying? Uh, I don't know. It was one of the things where somebody say something, and you yeah, that's your story. That's your story. Like I don't, I don't have a dog in this fight. You understand what I'm saying? And it's like, look, let's say whether that's true or that's false, right? I'm gonna be the same. So look, that's your story. That's your story. I mean, look, if Like he says, true. Look, if it's true, look, if that's her story, that's her story. You know, I'm not going. I'm not going to say he's lying. I'm not going to say she's lying. You know, I'm just going to say, you know, this is what can happen. Whatever went wrong, where, you know, she felt the need to come out with this right here. You know, but look, I mean, it is kind of difficult because he was the leader, right? He wasn't the leader of the Sicario. I mean, it is kind of difficult for him to be in that leadership capacity with that kind of knowledge out there. So the dude still mess with him. Uh, what's the dude? I think Hakan. I know. So Hakan, Hakan still speak to him. Isn't Hakan is Sicario too, right? Oh, okay, right. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Hassad and Deacon. Oh, so they left. Did they leave because of the information about the other guy? Now with them, uh, Vocab Malone be doing them pretty bad. You know, they not as especially see the one thing I give to Zeri, I see he could kind of go everywhere, and he could go on other platforms. Deacon don't when he's out of his element, it's not the same. And that's one of the things right there, saying got out right in the nick of time. Who knows, man? You know what I'm saying? But I'm sure the brothers will get it together, man. Whatever's happening. But, you know, see a lot of things, is universal just in terms of, you can't get caught up in just, small shit. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, no matter what nation people is from, you know what I'm saying? If they're about knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, freedom, justice, and equality for all people, you know what I'm saying? Then we all got a lot of work to do. You know what I'm saying? On whatever level that, you know, you working on. You know what I'm saying? Meaning like, you got people that's working in the economic arena. You know what I'm saying? You got people that's working in the political arena. You got people that's working, various educational arenas, social, et cetera, et cetera. You know, whatever it is, if you trying to deal with, uh, novelism and understanding freedom, justice, and equality for all people, you got a lot of work to do. You know what I mean? So then it'd be just a lot of things, who stepped on whose sneakers and stuff like that, that it's just, you know, whether I agree with them or not, it's just like, man, son, come on, son. You can't be getting caught up in some things, you know what I mean? You know, you can't like see you trying to explain to or the brothers was trying to explain to Tazariak about Yakub, but yeah, that's what it is. Don't be the one to cause the separation. See what I mean? Because the separation is the first step of the graftation. You know what I mean? Once you say, look, black people on this side of the room, brown people on that side of the room, you've already caused the separation. When it's just for your purpose, like it's one thing when you say, okay, this restroom for the women, that restroom for the men. See, that's the reality. But if you have one body, right, or we talking about, just the family, and you're just doing that for some other purpose, whatever is your purpose, whether you want to make the devil or not, you've begun to make the devil once you made those separations. You know what I mean? So, uh, whether it be rap groups or, look, I don't even look. I see Cam and Jimmy arguing, man, and be like, damn, son. You know what I'm saying? Like, whether you like people or you like their music or not or whatever, you be like, damn, son, if things started at knowledge, right, a certain way, then you like to see it be born alive and get to born like that, be complete like that. You know what I'm saying? Or even, grown, some added on to, not taken away from. But at any rate, like I said, we'll be on tomorrow. Everybody that made it this far, do the each one, teach one, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can know when we go live. Tomorrow we'll be live in the afternoon. In the meantime, in between time, I'm going to sign off and say peace.